Hey everybody, welcome to the Sword and Laser. I'm Veronica Belmont.
And I'm Tom Merritt.
Sword and Laser is a book club, but it's so much more. We bring you author interviews, news from the world of science fiction and fantasy, and of course, amazing discussions from fans just like you. But today we have a very special interview. I'm super excited to welcome onto the show again, author JF Dubeau, the author of The Life Engineered, the very first Sword and Laser Inkshares collection contest winner to have his book published. Welcome to the show, JF.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks for writing an awesome book that we could make our second Sword and Laser published book, our first novel, first Inkshares. So fantastic.
So many firsts. It's wonderful.
You're welcome. Well, it's my first book too, so I'm super excited.
We're all in this together.
It's been a wicked day.
So tell us.
Just before we actually get into talking about the book, how has it felt with launch day and seeing your book available for purchase and it starts to rise to the ranks and people are tweeting about it and stuff?
It's been a strange experience because the book, because of the way it's launched, has been available in a lot of people's hands for a week or two now. So it felt very soft launchy in a way. But at the same time, there's been so much Twitter attention and Facebook attention that's been gobbling up a lot of my time because I just feel compelled to interact with everyone.
So it was available via Inkshares before it went live on Amazon. Is that how it worked?
Yes, but at the same time, people who'd order from Amazon would still be able to get physical copies early. That might be an artifact of because I had the book on self-publishing on Amazon in the past, so maybe they made it available, which may affect rankings, but whatever, I don't care, as long as people are reading and enjoying it.
Tom, do you have a copy to show off? Is that what you were scrounging around for over there?
You caught me. It's upstairs.
Oh.
I forgot to bring it down. Do you want me to run there and get it?
We are, yeah, you go get it. And then.
JF,
he's got a copy. Here.
Oh, of course he does. Okay, good.
Yeah, I built a fort.
I'll click on JF's picture so it stays on him for a second. So JF, why don't you tell us a little bit about the book? Give us the rundown for people who may not be familiar with what's going on.
So the book is set in the future. It is a future that is dominated by robots. Humanity is it's not extinct, but it is gone from the face of the galaxy. And the story follows the main character is named Dajir, and she is a newly created Chepek or Chepek, depending on how accurate you want to be with the pronunciation. And she is basically new to this world and discovering how this robot society functions. At the same time, she's trying to figure out who murdered her creator, her robot mother, if you will. And as she's learning about these two things, she's sort of unraveling this situation that's slowly plunging her race of robots into towards a civil war that she's desperately trying to avoid.
So it's kind of like actually a sci-fi murder mystery.
Yes, but it's funny because it's a murder mystery without having the whole whodunit. Like there's no list of culprits that all end up in a drawing room at the end, and then the main character points at each of them, accusing and then dismissing them as potential suspects, and that doesn't end up being either the groundskeeper or the butler, but. You see where I'm going with that.
Spoilers. Jeez, it's not the groundskeeper. Okay, now we know. So is it Chepek or Chepek? Like, which one should we say?
Say the one you want. Like the name is taken from Jarel Chepek, who is the Czechoslovakian author who first coined the term robot, the word, and like I thought it was really clever with that. And it turns out that I've been pronouncing in my head Chepek for so long, and that's how I still pronounce it in my head, but the proper real pronunciation is Chepek.
Chepek, Chepek, Shannara, whatever.
There you go. Exactly.
So if you want to honor the author's original intention, you'll give yourself the backstory that over time accent drift made it Chepek, but then if you want to be accurate around Czechs, then you say Chepek. Is that it?
There you go. If you want to avoid a fight with a Czech, then just pronounce it.
What did you call that, Tom? You called it not accent drift or language drift?
Yeah,
what did you say?
That up. Accent drift.
I like that. That's good. That makes sense. There's got to be a real word for that, I bet, somewhere.
Yeah,
but that one sounds so modern.
It does. I was like, wow, Tom's really smart that he knew what that was.
That's the
cool.
key to sounding smart. You just make stuff up.
I do it all the time. So speaking of people who are very smart, we have a whole host of questions from the Goodreads audience. Tom, why don't you kick it up with Kara's question?
Yeah, so she's got a good one. Kara says, I found the lack of human bodies sort of interesting relief. No worries about Dajir suffocating, no need for any of the Capex to experience physical pain if they so chose, and no distractions due to sex. I had to completely reorient my expectations, and it was really fun to read, but it got me thinking. If Capex are the final personality produced by many reincarnated lives, wouldn't there be a disconnect between their lived physical experiences and their Capec reality? Why isn't that disconnect dangerous? This line of thinking has lots of implications, but I'm sticking with one question. I already know sex is out of the picture, but what about platonic or romantic love?
A lot of questions in there, actually.
And I can almost rapid fire these very, very easily. First of all, yes, there is a disconnect, and it's dangerous. It's almost the theme of why some of these robots, which are they're supposed to be sort of psychologically perfect, turn out not to be. They can have sex, and that is because if in the story there's some of the characters can use, well, they're born out of a form of virtual reality, if you will. Their personalities are sort of incubated that way, and some of them can use these virtual realities as forms of entertainment, which allows them to go into these virtual realities and engage in whatever activities they want if they so desire. So it is possible. Whether or not it is common for a race of artificial intelligence creatures, probably not. However, if there is love, platonic or romantic, yes, definitely. It wouldn't be as binary as we're used to seeing it as human beings, because we have an imperative towards biological reproduction, which sort of, I don't want to say forces us, but guides us towards forming couples. So you remove that kind of binary situation, but people will form a relationship of different depth, all from on a spectrum from superficial relationships to deep romantic love.
So are they having virtual reality sex? Is that what you were saying? That's something that they could do if they wanted to?
It's something they can do. It is something some of the characters that aren't in the first book, might be in the second book, probably definitely will be in the third book, will be doing.
So the porn industry is still driving technological innovation.
You know what? I believe that the entirety of the future dominated by robots is just because the human factor in the porn industry was probably too limiting to what the porn industry wanted to do.
I like it. I like to think that in the far, far future, Rule 34 still applies somehow, somewhere.
It becomes the only rule. Everything else is just a sub-rule.
3 rules of robotics? Screw that. Rule 34.
34, the 34 rules of robotics. That's the name of this episode. Okay, Paul wants to know, how many lives have you went through at this point? Have you reached nirvana?
No, clearly, because I'm still here. And how many, I wouldn't know, because you're only really aware of your artificial nature between cycles.
That was a deeply technical answer. I liked it.
Yeah. Kind of.
Well, if you read the book, probably you understand. Maybe not. Yeah. Maybe I'm too much in my own stuff.
Kind of depressing, but not unexpected, frankly. Has JF actually been to Somerville, Massachusetts? Asks Joanna. The description from the book did not jive with my impression of the place.
Okay, here's a story of that. I had a very specific list of criterias I needed for a setting, and I asked some of my buddies on the internet, which about almost 2.5 years ago, I need a place where someone would probably sell drugs, but that wouldn't have a big police station, and someone just said, "Oh, that's easy, Somerville, Massachusetts."
I used to work in Somerville, so this makes me laugh. Okay, yeah,
I just ran with it, and since then no one's been satisfied with my description of it. Either people say, "Oh, you make it sound too bad," and other people say, "Oh, we call it Slummerville, so you're probably too kind to it." So I honestly, no, I've never been. I will go. It's not even that far. It's probably a 4-hour drive. The excuse that it is in a virtual reality is what I'm kind of leaning towards. It's lazy storytelling on my part, and I do admit it, and I plan in the future, even if I think that a real life place is not going to be important in my story, I'm probably going to do a bit more due diligence in the future for it.
It's a good excuse to go travel places for research.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you have people telling you you're being too kind and people telling you you're being too hard on it, you probably struck the right chord, is my way of thinking.
Yeah, it's fun to piss off people from Massachusetts too anyway, so it's
Says
okay.
the woman born in Connecticut.
Yeah. I'm not biased.
They get wicked angry.
Wicked pissa, dude. Wicked pissa.
Amazing.
So our next question comes from Brian, and he asks, was there any real-life inspiration for the character of Dejir, or Devil, or Jonathan? Excuse me if I'm mispronouncing names, as I always do.
Jonathan.
Jonathan? Is that right? No?
No, it would be just Jonathan.
No, the joke is that I messed up a very easy name, JF. That was the joke. Yeah.
I'm sorry. You're a professional broadcaster, so I don't have that. I don't have that in the back of my mind that you mispronounce things.
It's okay. So were there any real life inspirations for your characters?
Jonathan is basically an amalgamation of every pleasant 5 to 8 year old I've ever met. So any character trait, whenever I've had a happy, pleasant, no crying interaction with a child, it's basically that's what Jonathan is, because he needed to be endearing to both my main character and to the readers. As for Orvindil and Dejir, I would have to do a bit of soul searching to see if I might have subconsciously taken something from them. I think Orvindil actually takes a lot from me, because he does a lot of over-rationalization and builds these kind of artificial excuses for what would be considered reprehensible behavior. As for Dejir, I don't know. Maybe, but nothing conscious.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times when we create characters, there is that kind of that fuzz of all the people we've met in our lives, and once you start creating the character, traits from certain people start kind of leaking in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they become this kind of a hybrid chimera of various people. And Dejir turned out to be a bit of a surprise as a character, because she wasn't even meant to be a female character until I kind of realized it. Just her personality was going that way, and that's how she would identify.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think Brian was more literally wondering if you knew any artificial intelligences.
Well, I can't talk about it because they'd have me eliminated.
Right, of course. Let's get to a question from someone who calls themselves G. Derrick, which is quite a coincidence, since the next Inkshares book is written by someone named G. Derrick Adams.
Probably not the same person.
Probably not. That'd be weird, yeah.
This G. Derrick says, there's some very quiet and interesting gender identity discussion in the book. Will this be a more central concept moving forward in the series? And it sounds like Dejir's character actually sort of rose out of that in a way.
Yeah, it's a difficult question, because in a way, as a white heterosexual male in my late 30s, I am not what one would call qualified to really do an in-depth exploration of gender identities. However, it does turn out that gender identity is something that is present with the characters, especially if I want to explore romantic or platonic love and relationships between these artificial intelligences. So it's not something that I'm going to explore in the sense that I'm going to stake a claim to having any kind of knowledge or experience. I'm fortunate enough that I know a lot of people in LGBT communities. Friend with the amazing Abby Wessel, who is a transgendered woman who's super smart, and I can sort of ask her questions about that kind of issues. Will it feature as sort of an artifact of how the world is built? Definitely, but I don't think I'm going to go beyond just I want the story to feel real, and I want the characters, because I have the privilege of being a fiction writer, I can build the world as I would like to see it. So while I will be presenting characters that have various interesting, maybe creative approaches to gender identities, it won't be something that's going to be sort of held up as a banner, if you will, because it's going to be natural to the world, and that's the world I want to see. So that's the world I'm going to write.
Awesome.
Cool. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
totally.
No, it made a lot of sense.
Okay.
Me.
I mean, it's always very difficult to write from a different perspective, but that's, it takes a lot of work to kind of write convincingly from a very, very different point of view or perspective from your own. So it's a challenge, and a lot of authors struggle with that.
And Charlie Jane Anders just wrote a really good column on writing, where she talked about forcing yourself to look at the blind spots in your writing, and that's not particular to gender identity and writing about other genders and things, but it's what you're talking about, which is not overstating your competence to do it, but kind of forcing yourself to look at those sides of the things that you don't have the natural experience with. Which is, I'm going to
write a book from the perspective of Donald J. Trump. Donald Trump.
Donald J. Trump.
Donald Trump.
Right. I hope it's a comedy.
What else could it be? A horror story. Sorry.
Oh, ouch. A horror comedy. There you go. No, my point is that I can't avoid bringing gender identity into, because I've already done it in the first book. So it's something that's going to get explored. I just don't want to misrepresent it by overdoing it.
Well, our next question from Xavier says, in The Life Engineered, you limited yourself to the viewpoint of Dejir, which we've been discussing a little bit, but in the teaser for Arcandroid, we see through a new character for the chapter. Will you be changing viewpoints in Arcandroid? If so, any chance we get a part through the mind of a von Neumann?
I think it von Neumann.
Neumann? Okay. Yeah. I'm thinking of like Neumann mics, so that's just where I said that from.
Now I'm gonna have to look up what the proper pronunciation for that is again. I will be changing point of views. Actually, I might be going through a third person. Right now, I'm almost done with the first draft of the sequel, and it's written jumping from one character to another between three main characters and sticking to first person point of view. But I'm gonna see how well that tests with beta readers, and if it's not comfortable, I might make it from third person. As for seeing through the eyes of von Neumann, probably not, because I don't know. I just don't have a character that really is appropriate for that in that story. Maybe in further books, when I get to it. I do have a really strange character whose viewpoint I'm exploring. I don't want to give anything away, but I have something that might be considered even weirder than a von Neumann.
All right.
And for those who are confused as to what we're talking about as a von Neumann, it's not a spoiler to say that they're basically robots with one mind spread across many bodies, which is why they have a very strange point of view.
Distributed intelligence.
Intelligence, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you were right. I think it is Neumann. I think you're in the clear.
Neumann! God. So you talked about the fact that you test your writing, and I know you probably don't want me to out you on this, but you've been very, very helpful with my own writing and giving me another perspective and encouraging me to do the same thing in testing. So we've got a couple of questions from people that want to ask you about your writing process and the publishing process. Jay says, I'm trying to get my ideas on paper and start writing a lot more than I think I should be doing. So I wanted to ask about your writing habits, if you have anything unique that helps you get all of your great plot ideas onto paper.
I don't know if it's unique, but I do. I'm not really good at pantsing, if I think is the term that's used amongst writer. Basically, I'm a plotter. I like to sit down, and what I usually do is I start with a general idea of what I hope and like to think is a unique concept, and sort of build a very, very simple story around it. Like if I can write maybe a 1 or 2 sentence story based on that cool concept, what I think is a cool concept, and then I embellish. I'll create a bunch of characters that I think are cool. I'll come up with a bunch of set pieces that I think are cool, and I'll have my general plot line, and I'll write all of these on electronic index cards, if you will. And from that point on, I'll try to add as much meat as possible until I get to sort of a critical mass where plotting is not as fun anymore. Basically, I'll overexcite myself with plotting until I get to the point where it's like, okay, enough, I need to write this, and then I'll do a first draft. And basically, at that point, I should have a good outline of the various acts of my book, how each act is divided. I'll have a list of some of my main characters or some secondary characters, and a few either plot points or set pieces, like specific scenes that I think are cool that should be in the book. I'll have all these ready, and I'll be able to sort of jump from one another and build whatever mortar needs to exist between these different pieces.
Fascinating to me how different people do this, and all the different methods people have for plotting things out and basically figuring out what it's all going to look like. It's very personal.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I find fascinating about talking to other writers. Like Tom and I have exchanged some emails, which I found absolutely fascinating because it allows me to see, like, oh, he does it that way, and it's fun to see everybody else's process, which I think is why the question, "What's your process?" is probably one of the most common. Not necessarily because we don't know what to do, but it's fun to see how others approach it.
Yeah.
Well, and I know when I was first starting to write myself, I wanted to know what the process should be, right? And you very quickly realize there isn't the process. There are all kinds of different ways, like you say. And so then it becomes like, oh, well, what does this person do so I can see if there's any ideas that work with my process and would make it better? And then it's that chimera again. You start to like pull together different ways of doing things.
What I find useful about seeing other people's process, like a lot of times when I hang out and talk to other writers, either on forums, Facebook, or whatever, I end up, everybody has this point where they say, oh, I'm blocked with this. And it's usually when you talk to someone else about how they do things that you'll see, oh, you're doing this one trick, this one little thing that would allow me to get through this one blockage. And the more you learn these various tricks and these various techniques, the easier it is for you to sit down and go, okay, I have this blockage, but I'm going to use this technique to get over it, or I'm going to prepare in this way so that I don't encounter these problems during the process.
You know, if you have a blockage, fiber definitely is good. I'm sorry.
Scotch is fiber, right?
Totally.
Sure.
Yes.
I think what JF's trying to say is that index cards are the fiber of writer's block.
Thank you, Tom. Joanna also has a question kind of about your process. She says, I'm curious about the entire Inkshares process and how it compares to traditional publishing, although I don't know if he's traditionally published. Was it hard to sort of switch gears from basically a sort of Kickstarter self-promotion to working with a full team? Would Inkshares handle any future sequels or stories in the same universe if The Life Engineered gets enough popular notice?
I love this question because one of the things about Inkshares when I first jumped on board, I jumped on board because of you guys. I saw the contest through someone else I know who was participating, and I went, oh, I love Sword and Laser, and I write books. This kind of works for me. But one of the biggest worries I had with Inkshares was there's so many self-publishing and vanity press options on the internet that sort of try to masquerade as legitimate publishers that I had this worry, like, who are these guys? Like, am I going to end up tied into a contract where I'm essentially self-publishing under a different banner? So I had a Skype call with Jeremy Thomas from Inkshares to sort of get a better idea what they were doing. But even then, like, that convinced me to participate, and you guys were nice enough to pick my book, and then I got into the actual process. And it was the most reassuring, professional, and entertaining thing I probably have ever done. First of all, to anybody that's participating in any contest right now with Inkshares, if you win, congratulations, you've won a second job. I don't know how that makes you feel. But because one of the things that became very clear with Inkshares as far as the process, once your book is picked up and being published, they work in tandem with a company called Girl Friday Production, which are super good at what they do. I loved working with their designers, and especially with my developmental editor, Cleet Smith, was just amazing to work with. So much fun. But the thing is, even if you get your standard without winning a contest, go get your funding, it's not enough to pay for the production, printing, distribution, which means that Inkshares is investing of themselves. So they don't see money if the book doesn't have some level of success, which means that they have a vested interest in making sure that your book is of a high enough quality to eventually generate profit. Henceforth, it's not a vanity press. They're going to put a gun to your head and say, make a good book, sucker, or we're in trouble and you're in trouble. So in a way, there's a lot of pressure behind it, but these guys, first of all, they act like a team. You're part of their team. You feel like they're coworkers in a way, not the unpleasant coworkers that steal your lunch, but the cool coworkers that you have lunch with and have a drink after work with. So it's a super pleasant experience. Everybody wants the book to succeed. Everyone wants the book to be of a higher quality, and it shows at every step of the work process. But it's work. It is. They make you work for it.
Nice. Well, that's good. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's going to be an awesome product. You know, when you have those many people, talented people working on a project like that. And I don't mean that to sound like it's a kind of project by committee, because it's not. I mean, if you were to be working with a traditional publisher, it would be much the same, I would imagine, if not more people involved. But it does, you get professional help, which I think is really great for a lot of first-time authors.
That was the one thing that. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, one of the things that I think is a bit maybe disingenuous is that they call it crowdfunding, where it feels more like crowd voting, because it helps select the book, but even the pre-orders aren't what finance the book completely. So it's really just about replacing the slush pile by people investing in the books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the thing that I didn't. I mean, I knew that was the idea, but I didn't really understand it until we watched you and G. Derek go through the process for the first time, and I was seeing a real publishing house in work. Right, I was seeing editors and designers and people weighing in and publicists, planning, and I was like, this is no joke. Like, this is what a publishing house does, and they're doing it for our contest winners. That's fantastic.
It is an amazing experience, and again, like, I have you guys to thank for, so always gratitude.
Well, thank you for writing such an amazing book. We're very excited for you. And where can people follow along with all your progress and what's up next for you?
Well, I need to better centralize all my efforts. I do have a website at jfdubeau.com. It's a very simple website that tackles all of my interests, including my writing, but other endeavors that I'm working on, less important, but maybe just as entertaining to others. I can be followed on Twitter at JF Dubeau, or you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/jfdubeau.writer.
Awesome. And for us, we are crowdfunded, and it's real crowdfunding over at patreon.com/swordandlaser. So thank you to all of you out there who kick in a little something every month to help support the show and keep us in, well, not whiskey today, but tea. Keep us in tea. Thank you.
Yeah, tea
whiskey, and podcasts.
Sometimes whiskey in your tea.
Mm-hmm.
You can also support the show by buying books through our links. Find links to the books we talk about and some of our favorites at swordandlaser.com/picks. Click on any link on that page, and then we get credit for anything you buy, even if it's not exactly that book.
And actually, I was going to say, we have a banner. We have a new banner on the website that is an Amazon banner. And if you want to go shop at Amazon, but you don't want a book or whatever, you can just click on that banner. It takes you to Amazon. And then if you want to buy a TV through that link, that will definitely help us out too.
Sure.
People were emailing us asking for that, so I added it.
If you want to buy a $1,700 Kino Flow Diva Light for your video podcast, you could do that. We're not saying you have to. You can just buy JF's book through one of those links. Whatever you want. swordandlaser.com/picks.
And of course, you can always get in touch with us at feedback@swordandlaser.com. Our website is swordandlaser.com. All of our discussions happen over on goodreads.com/swordandlaser. And you can call and leave us a voicemail at 415-7-SWORD6. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.